Sangwanini, Africa. Welcome to Size Democracy, a weekly show focusing on issues around democracy in Africa. Our show gives you a snapshot of what's happening on our continent in fun, informative, bite-sized segments. On this show today, we'll be speaking about upcoming elections in Africa. My co-host for today is Tinashe. Welcome to the show, Tinashe.
Thank you, Otilia. Thank you for having me. Good day to the viewers. So we have some interesting elections coming up with the local elections in South Africa, in presidential elections also in Zambia, in Somalia, in Gambia, JRC also.
Gabon and also Cape Verde, and our hashtag is BS Democracy. Please do tweet us, speak to us, join in the conversation. So what's happening with these elections, Tinashe?
Well, I'm really looking forward to the election in JRC. Just a brief history of JRC, the leadership. Joseph Kabila has been president since 2001. He took power from his father, Laurent Kabila, after he was assassinated. And in 2006, that's when he was democratically elected to be the president. 2011, he won another second term in office. So the end of the 2016, that's when his presidential term is ending, and he is barred by the constitution to actually, run for another term. But now there's been some interesting developments. I don't know if you have been watching the news lately. The Constitutional Court just said the government does not have money to have an election in November. Some are quite interesting developments, and you find that opposition is actually saying it's a way to prolong his tenure in office, which they say they want to modify the constitution.
Actually, speaking of opposition, Moise Katumba, who was actually in President Joseph Kabila's government, announced that he was running for president. And since he announced that, his life has been in danger, and he's actually fled the country now. But he was tried and sentenced in absentia. He was being accused of selling a house that did not belong to him. And for such a wealthy man, those are such laughable allegations. He actually owns one of the most successful football teams in the DRC, which is TP Mazembe. I'm sure you know the team, because I know you know quite a bit about football, Tinashe.
Yeah, and also looking at the other election, the Gambia, there's quite some similarities and some interesting facts. If you know the leader, Yahya Jammeh, has been in power also for about 24 years. He came in power, there was a coup staged. In 2014, he almost made the same fate. There was a coup, but it failed, obviously. And at the beginning of the year, there were protests that started in the country. And you look at the government has been quite repressive with opposition in the country. And just recently, this past week, the leader of the opposition, Dabo, has been arrested for 3 years in prison.
Speaking of opposition, Moise Katumba, who was in President Joseph Kabila's government, announced that he was running for president. And after he made that announcement, his life was actually in danger. He's actually fled the country right now, and he was tried and sentenced in absentia. He was sentenced to 3 years in jail for selling a house that wasn't his. For such a wealthy man, it's such a laughable allegation. I'm sure he's very wealthy, this gentleman. He owns a football team in the DRC called TP Mazembe. I'm sure you know quite a bit about football.
Okay, I know the guy.
And also, in May, the Constitutional Court actually ruled that if they can't have an election in November, President Kabila should stay on as president. What do you think of that?
It's actually one of the criticisms the opposition is actually leveling against the government. It's like they're actually buying time, trying to modify the constitution so that it can be in power. I mean, you look at Burundi, they did it last year. They modified their constitution. You look at the region, the countries surrounding DRC. You look at last year, the Republic of Congo, Nguesso. If you know him, he also went through a constitutional referendum so that he can stay in power for a third term. It's actually a critique of what the government is actually trying to do. So I'm with the opposition. It's quite a similar case in Gambia. Gambia is actually having the election on the 1st of December. Just a brief history of Gambia. The president, his name is Yahya Jammeh. He's been a president since '94. Yeah, and he won power through a coup. And in 2014, almost made the same fate. In 2016, there've been growing discontent against this government, obviously, and the growing political and economic situation in the country. And you look at activists that have actually spoken against the government. And just recently, this past week, an activist by the name of Dabo has actually been sentenced to 3 years in prison for speaking against the government.
Wow, actually speaking of activists, Gambia is actually quite notorious for jailing activists. I think just recently, I think 2 weeks ago, they arrested 2 activists, and in April actually, a very prominent activist, I think his name is Sono Sandeng, actually died in police custody, and there was such an uproar. Even Ban Ki-moon himself demanded that there be an investigation as to what happened to this man. Gambia is very notorious with this. Enough of the dreary stuff. Surely there should be a beacon of light out there, an African country where elections are happening like they should.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to the Cape Verde election. They just recently had a parliamentary election, and the opposition won the election. And what's really interesting about this election is the ruling party actually conceded, which is actually something rare in the political landscape in Africa.
Very, very rare. And actually, this opposition had been in opposition for 15 years, which is actually quite amazing. And now they're in power. And you know what really caught my eye was that the people of Cape Verde were grappling with issues like youth unemployment, public debt, and they took their grievances and took them straight to the ballot, and they got the change that they wanted to see.
Yeah, it's actually a commendable thing for Africans to do.
Yeah, it's been I can say it's been tough for Africans. Every time they try to express themselves, either they're being put in jail or they're being beaten up. But they found one avenue where they can speak in accordance, where they can speak, in a chorus, and there's nobody to harass them, to arrest them. That's social media. This is where lots of Africans come together and voice and express their opinions. And one hashtag that caught my eye this week is the AU passport, hashtag AU passport. And this passport was launched at the 27th AU Summit, and the first 2 recipients were President Kagame from Rwanda and the incoming chair, President Deby from Chad. What do you think about this passport, Tinashe?
I'm actually looking forward to having an African Union passport very soon, but it's actually a noble idea, obviously. You look at the benefits of free movement of goods, free movement of services, free movement of people actually. It's going to create a more integrated Africa. You look at how the EU has actually benefited from such a system. So I'm actually looking forward to the AU passport. And
I'm just going to read a few tweets here from hashtag AU passport. There's a tweet from IEA Kwame who says, "Folks, Africans do not need an AU passport. All that is required is visa-free travel for all citizens of the AU member state." And then there's also others who are saying, a dream market who says, "The passport for Africa is a good thing, a testament of people willing to integrate." Please do let us know what you think about the passport. Okay. Mr. Dabo is one of the people who are going to be looking back in history and saying, this is one of the people who helped shape the narrative in Gambia. Just like the Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia, who was actually born on the 23rd of July. That he played a major role in making Addis Ababa the central of the Organization of the African Unity, which is now the AU. And also another commendable African who was born this month is Chief Albert Lutuli. Did you know that he was born in Zimbabwe?
I had no idea.
He was born in Zimbabwe, but he was a South African citizen. And also another fact that people didn't know about him is that he was a Nobel Peace Prize winner. He won it before Madiba and FW de Klerk.
Wow. Looking at when we were discussing about elections, I came across an interesting quote from Israel Moore Avio. He's from Ghana. He's an inspirational speaker.
Wow.
It goes, "You don't necessarily need atomic bombs to destroy a nation. Politicians who value their pockets and the life of citizens always do that every day."
Wow, that is so true. On that profound tip, we come to the end of the show. Thank you for tuning in. And on next week's show, we'll be talking about the recently concluded 27th AU Summit in Kigali. We'll be looking at the African Union as a whole. What have they done for us? What have they achieved? As Madam Zuma wraps up her term, we look at the legacy that she's left and the great things she's done for us as Africans. Toko Manana, Africa.